What's going on, folks? Welcome back. This is the Cloud Pilot, and you're listening to the Cloud Pilot podcast. Today, I'm so happy because we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, Google Cloud. And today, we have an ex-managing director of Google Cloud and currently the CEO of a Google Cloud Premier partner, Matt Kestian, to talk about Google Cloud and how it is enabling and transforming the world. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for accepting my invite. And it's absolutely a pleasure to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Dash. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Matt, why don't you say about your background? We would be eager to know, our audience would be so much eager to know how you have gone through all the journey so far.
Excellent. So I'm currently the CEO of a company called 66 Degrees, which is an exclusive Google Cloud partner focused on helping our clients modernize their applications infrastructure, data and analytics capabilities, as well as collaboration while doing it all securely. I've been in the industry for about 25 years. I started off at the very ground floor. So I started off pulling cables under desks and setting up workstations and servers. I moved then into more of a consulting level roles, wound up going to work for Microsoft, where I worked for about 15 years in total, 13 years straight. I took 5 years to run my own business and then and came back for 2 years. Kind of semi-retired I was thinking it was going to be permanently, but basically wound up being about 6 months. And then I wound up going to Ernst & Young and then Google Cloud before coming here. So that's kind of my background. And in terms of family life, I grew up, I grew up in Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, in the United States of America, but I've lived many, many places throughout my career. Moved around quite a bit.
That's really amazing. So now that you're a CEO, how does your daily life look like?
It's interesting. Every day is different. So I'll start there. But we tend to run cadences as CEOs more like weeks, biweekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly in terms of our metrics. But on any given day, I can be talking directly to a customer, helping assure them of our capabilities and quality of delivery. We could be handling escalations. I could be talking with the team about leadership and how we're developing as a team, interviewing. It's just a plethora of possibilities. But the way I look at it is my reason for being here is to help present the vision and mission and kind of roadmap for where we want to go, and then helping all the teams around 66 Degrees to get us there. So I really look at my day is providing kind of that servant leadership to the teams around us, and really being kind of a face outwardly to the market and to our clients and to Google.
Wow, that's really amazing. I know you personally for some time now, and I can say you're an exceptional leader. So thank you so much for whatever things that you're doing.
And thank you, Dash.
So now, as a CEO, you told me that it's each day is a different day. So there should be a lot of challenges that you're facing on a daily basis. So what are some of those challenges that you can share?
Yeah, it's very interesting because the challenges run from kind of mundane topics like interpersonal communications, collaboration around a team, as you expect, team dynamics, all the way to looking at what's going to happen in the macro economy and how should we prepare and be ready for that. So a couple of big things within the industry that we're experiencing. One is there's a tight talent market, especially for expertise around Google Cloud. Right. So there's lots of technical talent in the market. It moves frequently, but Google Cloud, that expertise is very important. The other piece is just macroeconomics lens. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market today. There's concerns with inflation and geopolitical activities. So we just have to be cognizant we have aggressive growth plans. And so growing, but not growing uncontrollably. You have to manage that and reduce risk. And then finally, just making sure that the challenges of just keeping on task, right? There's so many things that a company could focus on. The question is what's important to focus on. So sometimes the most important part of my job is saying, no, we're not going to do something, even though it may seem like it makes sense at a tactical level to individuals. it may not make sense at a company level to focus our attention on that when we could be focusing on other places. So that's kind of how I break it out is kind of mission, vision, direction, the making sure we have our priorities aligned and that we're focused on them, interpersonal and cultural pieces within the company, and then the macroeconomic, the big picture and strategy items that we're trying to deal with. Those are the biggest challenges.
Yes, absolutely. One thing which I've learned so far is to learn to say no to whatever things that we don't find or feel that it is the right thing to do. So
yes,
absolutely.
And sometimes when you're looking at that question of do you say no and it's in isolation, it makes perfect sense to say yes. Everything would tell you to say yes. But then when you look at the opportunity cost of saying yes to that, as opposed to something else that you need to accomplish outside of looking at that thing, when you look at the big picture, it makes sense. And in that, we run into that every day where someone would be like, hey, I really would advocate that we go this path. And then when you look at it, you're like, yes, I understand that it's a good idea in isolation, but in the big picture, it's not what we want to do.
Yes.
And there's many of those every day we get asked those questions.
It would be a great sin if I don't talk about 66 degrees since you're the CEO. So can you talk about 66 degrees and how Google Cloud is, how 66 degrees enable the transformation of the world and customers using Google Cloud?
Absolutely. In order to focus the question a little bit, I'll start off with the high level. We decided to focus on cloud technologies, and because cloud technologies are transforming the world, they're transforming the way every business does business. And if almost every company I've ever talked to is now either in or going into some form of cloud. And so then the decision was, well, where do you focus in that cloud spectrum with the kind of the three large competitors and then others underneath? And Google Cloud has been growing at a very rapid rate. The security is extremely well done. The engineering talent that they have and what they've built in terms of the levels of technologies and service they have, I think are on a level that most of the other providers didn't get to. And I say that because there's other providers that started their businesses off in different areas, and just because they built their business on the back of a technology, they then converted that technology to be used by others. Whereas Google Cloud had built their Google Cloud environment focused on solving real customer problems. And the place that you can see this really shining is around their data analytics and kind of ML and artificial intelligence capabilities. It's one of those places that shows up very uniquely. It's hard to kind of compare virtual machine sizes and speeds and feeds and network because those change a lot, right? There's different size VMs that come out all the time, different prices. But when you start looking at the capabilities, the raw capabilities that Google Cloud provides, and the ability to take data from disparate systems, bring that data together, and begin to see connections through the models that are created, and begin to base decisions of what the future could look like based on those models, things become really interesting. I'll give you just a very high level example that I use. We worked with a client where they were taking, basically this client was responsible for retail stores, and they were taking pictures. So they have multiple cameras that look at shelves, and they can see the person in front, and they can see the shelf and the products that are there. They have the ability to present advertisements on a screen, and they also have the ability to when a person reaches in that shelf, see what product they've taken out. So they can suggest things. Hey, this Matt Kestian, who watches baseball in the United States, just picked out a 6-pack of Coors Light beer. It's baseball day. Maybe Matt Kestian would also be interested in hot dogs and hamburgers for his barbecue, right? Things like that. And the other part about that is when I pull that out, it can determine stock levels on the shelf. So it can say, wow, that the stock is now depleted. Is there more stock in the back of the cooler? Is there more stock in the back of the store? Or do I need to place an order for stock? Taking out that human intervention piece where a store shelf may be empty for a period of time. And empty store shelves cost money to both the store and to the brand that would be on that shelf in that shelf space, which is really impactful. But the idea of that just a few years ago didn't exist, but now it does. And The other piece I'd posit with that is look at the mapping capabilities. I was just over in Mysore, India, in the complexity of the streets, in the traffic patterns, and how you get from Mysore to Bangalore or Bengaluru. You would think that would be an amazingly complex problem, but yet the driver has Google Maps running and has the exact route, knows the timeline, knows when there's issues with traffic, and can get you from point A to point B pretty seamlessly. That's all driven by thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of points of data, real-time information coming in, representing on a map, all based on a platform that is being leveraged by Google's customers. So it's a pretty amazing capability there. And I see this going into all different areas, not only retail, which is a big focus for 66 Degrees, but healthcare and life sciences and manufacturing and safety. I see it in financial services industry. So there's when I look at this and see how it's changing the world, it's changing the way businesses work. It's changing the way we make decisions. And hopefully in the right hands with the right, thought around it will improve the lives of everybody around the world going forward.
Awesome. That's indeed something that makes us really unique.
That by the way, that's the piece I missed. So what makes 66 Degrees unique in this, right? So 66 Degrees has chosen to be a cloud provider, exclusively cloud. How do we have a saying, let's get you there. And let's get you there means where do you as a business want to get to? In our case, we specifically picked Google Cloud. We picked Google Cloud because of the capabilities provided on Google Cloud. And then that allows us to help develop specific focused talent around Google Cloud. It allows us to become the best at what we can be. We also are engineering led. And when I say engineering led, what I mean by that is I'm an engineer. We have a CTO who's an engineer. We have hundreds and hundreds of engineers in the company. And the reason that I use that engineering led piece is because it ties into the Google culture as well. We are trying to solve very complex problems through technology. And I think having that engineering mindset is how you do that is very important. And engineers also will measure twice and cut once, right? We're thoughtful in what we do. And so we should make it so that we're reducing risk to the customer and having the best outcomes. And then the final piece, because we're so focused on Google Cloud and we're focused on the engineering, it does allow us to provide an end-to-end capability for customers that no one else in our space that's an exclusive cloud provider, I really feel provides. And that's everything from advisory services, helping customers understand the governance and change management, specifically, the organizational change management components, financial operations. Like that's really important when you get there for day two operations. The second piece is the project services of actually getting workloads into the cloud and modernizing or redeveloping their capabilities. And then the third piece is how do you manage all that? How do you support it? And so there's a managed services capability that we've built out and are continuing to build out that will help companies that don't want to have, investments in supporting the legacy that they built in the cloud and actually just want to keep transforming and modernizing, but have someone else do that. And we're going to take those pieces on as well. And I think that together is a very unique package. And we have unique differentiators within there, like our retail focus, our focus on data analytics, ML and AI capabilities, and having just a super solid team of engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a unique thing, which I have personally observed in the pool of cloud companies which are being here right now. So what do you think is the growth of cloud in general, and what is Google's impact? What is your business view on the growth of cloud and how Google is bringing those impacts?
Yeah, no. So growth of cloud is going to continue for a while. I believe, people say we're at the beginning of the journey. I don't think we're at the beginning anymore. I think we're, a third of the way through, let's say, but it's still early days. So the growth will continue, and you can see that in the numbers reported to the street for the three large cloud providers. They're is still in a hyper growth mode at Google. So when you think about growing 40% plus over multiple years, that they're in that zone. And so there is market share to be gained. There are other providers outside of the three big ones that are interesting. But I think over time, though, what I've seen just from historically is there will be consolidation in the market of those types of providers. So in terms of the growth, I think there's longevity in growth. It is critical, mission critical to our clients. So with macroeconomic headwinds coming, cloud is one of those things that they'll still need to continue to invest in, as if they were investing in their own data centers, their own compute in past pieces. But they'll want to do that with more diligence and more thoughtfulness on what absolutely has to be done. When it's a macroeconomic situation, you need to focus on the urgent and the important, not just the urgent pieces. Like sometimes urgency is a distraction if it's not important. So I think there are going to be times where people will make decisions a little on what projects have high priority or not. So I think that'll be part of the growth considerations. I think Google's impact in it is already being seen very positively. So having multiple strong hyperscale providers is a positive for everybody, because the competition in that market means that everybody has to continue to race to be better and gain focus in their areas. So I actually look at that as a really positive sense. And Google in market is growing. I think Thomas Kurian at the beginning of this year said something in the neighborhood of a $50 billion to $51 billion backlog of work that needs to move into the cloud. And that just tells you, so that backlog means that customers have committed and said, we are going to run these workloads in Google Cloud, but they have not yet been deployed. And so that's where companies like us come in to help get those customers there, right? Let's get you there and whatever they want to do. In terms of the impact that's going to be felt, every day you start seeing it without realizing it or with realizing it, I'm not sure, but applications that secure the companies that we run, companies that are partners to Google Cloud. I'll just mention a couple. Like Palo Alto Networks has an amazing product that during the COVID timeframe, I think it was called Prisma, really accelerated in growth, but helped companies adjust to a climate that they weren't really ready for at the time, right? They were closing their office doors and scaling up. So think of that impact. That impact was Google Cloud working with one of their ISVs, helped an entire industry prepare for virtual work, working from home. The impact is going to continue to be felt. There's I can't, without getting into too much information, every day we hear of customers that we are helping get to the cloud, or that that Google is helping get to the cloud. And these are large brands that are going to be changing industries. And you've seen some of those announcements that are public. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange. How are we going to be trading equities in the future? And how are we going to do that securely, robustly with a super quick network? You look at Sabre. How are you going to transform the transportation industry with a company that basically handles so many of the transactional elements of that industry? And then you look at companies that are on the platform. Well, I won't get into the other brand names that aren't public, but there's just so many interesting things that these customers are doing and how they're doing it. I'll tell you, there's a really small company. It's one I invest in. It's called Likely.ai. And they basically use artificial intelligence in the real estate and mortgage industry to determine buyers and sellers that are most likely going to buy or sell within the next 90 days with a super high degree of accuracy based on a set of data that they leverage, and they have that all leveraged on Google Cloud. It's really amazing the impact that it's going to have. Because if you think about, I don't know, Udesh, if it's in your area, but around my home, I get these flyers all the time. And it's just people spending lots of money to try and advertise to me when I'm not in the market to do anything like that. But when you use this technology and you can pinpoint in the market who is, then those dollars are better spent. You have a better targeted audience, and you can actually help people who really want your help. So there's just lots of changes. There's lots of happening in the Google Cloud market.
Yeah, in fact, I am always excited to talk about Google Cloud because it has been my favorite topic since 2020, ever since I'm learning it.
Well, I'll say this though. Every hyperscale provider has some issue, right? And so I never cast stones. I think they're all very good. I happen to think that Google Cloud is the best. But I never cast stones or aspersions because I've been on the other side of that when I worked for Microsoft, right? It's a building. This is a complex environment, and people put their trust in our business. And as long as you make your service level agreements, that's the important thing. So, but there will be an outage in Google Cloud. There will be an outage on Amazon. There will be an outage on Azure. It is just, how do they manage that? How do they control it? And how they mitigate risk to make sure it doesn't have a wide impact? Those are the important pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So how has your life changed after you have become a CEO?
My life, I wouldn't say my life has changed. There's going through my career, I've had many different roles. And as you go through and you begin taking more senior level roles, I think the way you look at things has to change. So while I focus on the details, because the details are still very important, details in sales and delivery are very important, and marketing and how you do it. I think getting to the bigger topics, looking more around and thinking more about the culture of the company and what you want to build, that has changed. Like the mentality of how I do it has changed. I'll tell you, when I was early in my career, I was less, I was less flexible. I was very competitive. I was working hard, and I was very right. There was a right way and a wrong way. And now I see that there are shades of gray in everything we do. And so I think in terms of the viewing things differently, that's the biggest change. And in terms of priorities, now that I understand that it's not about me, it's about the team. It's about us aligning. It's about us working together, which sounds easy, but in practice is hard because there's so many interpersonal things, personal agendas, people's concerns, lack of clarity. Like those are things that I feel like I am highly accountable to creating a culture and a vision and a direction and trying to get people rallied around that and heading there. But once again, I can't do that, right? I mean, in the end, I can't do that work. It has to be the leaders we have and the consultants and the salespeople and the accounting and the operations and all of these people working in unison for a common purpose, which is really to make this one of the best companies to work for and to have a huge impact on helping our clients be successful in modernizing and transforming using Google Cloud.
While building a team, what are those factors that you really consider?
This is interesting because I believe that a person's career is a culmination over time of the impact that they've had. And what I mean by that is, as you do well as I'll use myself as an example. I did well as a consultant, and then I had an opportunity where I just beginning to establish my brand, and then as a new position opened up, they were like, "Oh, you might be good for that. Talk about it." So then you take on this new job and you learn more, and then eventually, if you have that desire, you want to move into things like leadership and management. But when I first hire, I hire for basically the natural strengths a person has, something I can't teach them. Do they communicate well? Do they think logically? Do they have a general cognitive ability to them? Do they have empathy? Are they self-aware? There's many factors that you can never train somebody on. So I look at that. The second one is I look at their aspirations and will. People talk about motivation. I believe that the highest performing people are very self-motivated. However, I believe that leaders and teams can demotivate people, meaning you put up roadblocks and things aren't going well and people are like, what am I doing here? So the thing is, keep motivating, give them a direction, give them a mission, give them a vision of where they want to go, and keep them self-motivated to get there. And don't do anything silly to knock them down. So I look at natural strengths, their motivation, because once again, it's hard to shape that. And then the final piece is I look at the experiences and investment they've made in themselves. So early in career, like let's say we have interns that were coming through a program, we want to hire them as like associate consultants. I focus very little on the general experiences and investment because they don't have that much. They're just developing. So you look at their curriculum and what they've kind of learned, but they're very malleable at that point to learn new things. They're like sponges. They want to learn. Then as you get more senior, if I was hiring, a chief revenue officer, a chief delivery officer, then I begin to look very closely at their experiences and track record of success, and also their philosophies and leadership philosophies and how this gels together. And so those over time and based on the role, those pieces change. I think that when you're looking for the highest performers, they do have impacts over time that you can look back and go, wow, that's a really interesting track record. So those, in terms of factors to consider when hiring, those are the big ones. When you're talking to people, I think like within the first probably 15 minutes, you have formed an opinion. It's pretty easy to do that. And the first opinions are often hard to change. So, and whether they're positive or negative. So you have to also keep an open mind to when you're interviewing and talking to people, they're interviewing you. You have to, be very open and transparent on what you want and what you're looking for, and let people be transparent back. So that's pretty much it. It's a simple formula. Natural strengths, investment in themselves, their aspirations and will to perform highly. You line all those right up to the right business need, and they're going to have a high business impact, right? And you want to avoid the negative impact. You don't want to. I say this to the leaders and team, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but like, don't be a jerk. Be a good person. If you're a good person, you're 80% to being where you need to be as leader.
Right. It's absolutely wonderful insight. So, how much importance does culture have in the growth of a company, and also how does it, motivate or supports the employees?
I believe culture is one of the most important things in a company, especially a growing company like 66 Degrees. So we came from two companies, kind of a company called Quinix and a company called Cloudbakers, very different cultures that were brought together. But now we need to form the culture of 66 Degrees. In that culture, the reason it's so important, it's because it's the reason that people stay or leave companies, I believe. In some cases, people just have lifestyle things that they want to deal with and maybe experience they want to get that they can't get at a certain organization. But I think if the culture's strong and they're happy working with that and they have good people around them and they're doing well and performances, the team's performing well, then they feel good. So the mission, the vision, the values, the keeping the goals out in front of the folks and recognizing, rewarding great work. To me, that helps build a culture. But the biggest piece of culture that if I had one magic wand to wave over a company would be trust. How do we get people to trust each other? And that trust is usually developed over time of working with people. And I say that because one of the times I was the happiest in my career was when I worked with a group of people that over the course of about 4 or 5 years, that we just gelled. We just became a team. And in first year, we probably weren't. We were more friends and kind of connecting. But by that second year, I could finish the other person's sentences and they could finish mine. And we knew we would challenge each other on ideas because we were comfortable saying, wow, that's silly. Like I wouldn't do that. And here's why I wouldn't. And to debate that in a constructive way. And then at the end, come out with something that we would all agree to and march forward with. Like trust is the magic piece of culture. And the next piece after trust is accountability. And I think they go hand in hand because if you have a team that's accountable to doing things for each other, then they will trust each other. If people do what they say they will do, then people trust them. And so those two pieces, I don't think they're underrated in companies. But I do think in certain leadership pieces that I've seen through my career, there wasn't as big of a focus on that as I think there should be. There's a heavy focus on, hey, we have to get to this number, which is absolutely the truth. That's the accountability piece. But how you get to that number is through people and people working together, and people work together faster, better, into a higher capability because I don't want to disappoint someone that trusts me. And they don't want to disappoint me. And so to me, it's about working together to drive forward. I know we're getting close to the time here, but I think culture is everything. I think culture, without it, you cannot grow. You can hire, very quickly, but you will lose people just as quickly. Well, compensation is very important. It's not the number one piece when we talk to people about coming here. It's not the number one piece they're looking at. It's obviously something that they want. People want to be compensated well. They want to have rewards and recognition. So you have to cover that. But they want a place that they can feel like they can fit in. They can be part of an organization that has values that they have and that works hard, and that they could look to their left and look to their right. And these people they support them and they support those people. And the more we can do that, the better. And honestly, when we struggle with that, going through and developing that is not something you can say and just have it happen. It has to happen over time, and it has to keep building every day. And you can lose it like that.
Absolutely. That really shows the importance of culture in the company. So what's your definition of success? How does success look like to you?
Is that personal success or business success, Udesh?
I'd be happy to know both.
Okay. Let me talk personal success first. Personal success for me would be having a lifestyle that I'm happy and enjoying with my wife and family, and we're living together. And while not perfect, it's something where we feel we're happy, healthy, and loved. Personal or business success to me is growing a business, not only to make our numbers, but it's how we measure ourselves is always through numbers. So having that aggressive growth, but it's really about having an impact at the end and being seen. Like 66 Degrees was a company that's made its mark, that is known and branded as a top performing consultancy that also happens to be able to do resell on Google Cloud, but that we're looked at as a brand name. So when you hear 66 Degrees, people go, wow, I know that. And that means that in order to get there, that we have a company that has a great culture, that we have a team that really wants to be here, that we have people that are performing at a high level and they're supported. And that we do all the right business pieces so that we don't stub our toes or interrupt cash flows to the point where we're in a jeopardizing position. And I mean, those are all things that we have to think of every day. But for me, that would be the pinnacle. Happy life, happy family, personal and well-known, branded, established and leading industry company in terms of professional.
I'm sure you'll reach that milestone in no time.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now that you have this much knowledge that you've gained over all these years, what would you have advised your younger self?
Wow, it's a good one. Really early in my career, I was hyper competitive, and it kind of showed. It was good in a way for my career. It wasn't necessary. There are things I look back on now at being 53 where I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have been to a few more soccer games. I wish I would have been. So you got to take the time as you're working hard to also smell the roses and look what's around you, because that's what you're working for. You're at the end of the day, having a little bit more cash in your pocket as an individual would be, it's fine. It's a decision, but having more hours with your family and your friends and enjoying it on the way would be something. And that's something I learned in the middle. You hit the middle when I had Blue Metal, my company. The other piece I would say is, it's hard as a person to share their true feelings and thoughts with other people, because you're reading and kind of, especially at work, right? You're working together. But I think when if you build that trust, one of the things that you have to be able to do early on as a leader is provide both positive and constructive feedback, because not everyone is aware of what's happening and that they're being interpreted a certain way. So those tough conversations have to happen, and they're uncomfortable. And I learned to develop that over time. I'm still not perfect at it, but those things have to be done because you're going to have, it's the only way you improve is feedback. And the other thing is just constantly accepting feedback yourself is a gift, because no one is perfect. No one knows it all. And the second you think you do is the second you're going to make a big mistake. So you have to listen to others and accept new ideas, engage in constructive debate. And then at the end of the day, make decisions and move on. But for my younger self, I think it was an evolution to go through, and you hear people say things and you don't always believe it. The other thing is every young person has heard someone in their family say, man, life is short, time goes by quickly. It's true. It's true. You don't think about it when you're 16. You're like, I want to be 21. And then you're 21, you're like, wow, that was quick. And then you become 53 and you're like, wow, this is, I'm in the last, couple things that I'm ever going to do in terms of work again at some point. And so enjoy it. It's life's short. The other thing is have goals. That what younger self have goals. If you set out goals, it helps you get there. I found a notebook where I had goals. And one of the goals I looked in there said, have my own business, which I did, and be a CEO, which I'm doing.
So yeah, that was a lot of insights, and it's really a good piece of life advice. And I had a lot to take away from this, just this conversation that we had for a half an hour. So thank you so much once again, Matt, for joining us. It was my pleasure to have you on my podcast. And how did you feel? How was your experience?
Udesh, I thought it was great. It's not often I get to talk about all these things at a deep level. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And I'd be happy to join you anytime about any topic. So
thank you so much for spending your time with me and our audience. I'm very sure that there is a lot of things to take away from this, whoever this is watching. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos. And thank you so much once again, Matt, for joining. We'll catch up soon in another one. Till then, it's me, the Cloud Pilot, signing off.